So let's create a view style form. All right, so we're back to our database. Now, depending on what you're doing, you may want to use a form wizard here. Again, this is one of those areas where I tend not to. Well, actually, it depends on what I'm doing. In this case, we're going to start with it. We're going to go after not this, but this. We're just going after a table. So I am going to use our wizard for that. We're going to click Form Wizard up here. And note that because I selected the table first, it brings it up for me. Because what do I need here? I need a customer number. I need a customer name, address, city, state, zip. And I'm going to grab my primary contact, phone, fax, and email. And you know what? We'll grab our secondary as well. I don't know how good or bad or ugly that data is in that particular database. I probably should have checked before I did this. But we're going to click Next. I'm going to let it just do a columnar-style form. We're actually going to call it our customer lookup. And I'm actually going to modify the form's design. I'm not even going to bother previewing it because I know it doesn't look like the way I want it to. So off she goes, it creates this for me. That's great. Well, this boundary represents the boundary of the form itself. Were I to display it, here we go. This is what it looks like. Is that what I want to be looking at? No, not at all. I want to prettier up a little bit. I want to make it more useful. So we're going to expand this out a little bit. Just give us some visual areas to work in. And what we're going to do is we're going to start by, let's just move this guy up here. I'm going to take his label off. I'm just going to click on the label and delete it. I'll show you how I did that here. We're going to take it off our zip code too. Just click on the label, not the field itself, but the label, and delete it. So I just freed up a couple of spaces in here. So that's a start, okay? But I also want to get some contact stuff. And I've got both a primary and a secondary contact here. So what I may opt to do is I may opt to open this right up and say, look, I want to take my secondary stuff here. We're going to have to scoot down a little bit. And I'm going to hold down my Shift key. I'm going to click on the first field. I'm going to hold down my Shift key and click on each of the next two. Normally it would be, in a lot of applications anyways, your Control. Like if you were doing Windows Explorer, it would be Control. In Access, for whatever reason, they chose to use the Shift key. Beyond me why. So we're going to scoot this over here so that we're kind of opening up to a little bit more of a visible type of a lookup here. Something that's going to be a little bit more logically laid out for us. So now what I can do is I can say, well, look, do I need all these? Probably not. We'll scoot you over here a little bit, try and get it lined up as best we can. Now I'm just left-click over to the upper left and draw down to the lower right, and I can grab a group of fields that may fall in between here. We're going to scoot this down a little bit, and we're going to call this just contact. We're going to call this one phone. I'll explain what I'm doing here in a second. This is no different than changing the literals inside of the reports that we were playing with. So I'm not repeating it here. I don't necessarily need it repeated. So I just changed them to contact, phone, fax, email. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in, like we did adding passport to that last piece, we're going to say primary and secondary. So I'm actually going to add a label to my contacts. So maybe I want to set those off a little bit. Again, just go into traditional formatting, click on Home, change colors if you want, whatever. I'm going to make them bold. We're going to bump up the size a little bit, go up to 16. And you'll know, if you ever do work in like a, I don't know, I use to like CorelDRAW, doing artistic design stuff. Everything is its own individual piece of the puzzle, if you will. And when I change the font size, it's going to suppress anything that's beyond the size of the initial field. So you're going to have to expand those out to be able to see them completely. All right, so we're gonna save those changes real quick, and we're gonna go view it. So now I've got this. Looks a little better. I still need to change some labels over here. And really, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the design view, and we're just going to say customer, because the rest of this stuff's pretty darn straightforward. So now I've got my base customer contact data. I'm going to highlight that. We're going to scoot. We're going to highlight that, and we're going to scoot that in and kind of center it up a little better. And I may want to go further and start to organize things a little prettier down there. I may want to go ahead and grab a rectangle, as a for instance, and drop these fields inside of a rectangle. What's that do for me? Well, it kind of sets them off. What I can also do is I can go back to design view. I can take that rectangle and I can go to its properties, or I can just go down here to special effect and choose a different effect. I just chose the sunken in one. It'll be hard to see from where you're at, but it kind of sinks in now. That's my preference. Why? I have no idea. I just kind of like it. So we now have a basic form that I might give somebody to do some lookups, but I really want to add a little bit more capability to it. What I want to do first is bump this up. I got to change this one first. You'll note I'm trying to move this up. It won't allow it. The reason it won't allow it is because this is too fat. It'll only let you go as high as your lowest object. Just to give myself a little bit more space in here. Because what I want to do now is I want to add a couple of capabilities to this, a couple of buttons, if you will. So we're going to click on our little button tool here. We're going to come down and we're going to start by just clicking over here and dropping it. And it asks us, what do we want to do? Well, I want to do some record navigation. I actually want to find a record. And this is a sample of what it might look like, the icon might look like if I choose that. And that's how I'm going to do this. I'm going to leave it as a picture. I'm going to use the default binoculars. And I'm not going to rename this. You can. I usually let the command names get named for it. It's just the name of this object inside of this program, if you will. I don't mess with those. Not usually. So I'm going to change the size of this. And we're going to scoot it right over here to add a lookup tool to our form. I got one other tool I need to add here. I want you to be able to get back out of this when I add a user interface later. So in this case, what I can do is I can go after my form operations and then choose from these options. And in this case, we want to close our form. Again, I can click next, but it's just going to have me rename. Or what I can do is this. I can come in and say, look, I can leave it as my exit doorway, or I can name it something. And we'll be naming stuff in a few minutes, so I'm going to leave it as the exit doorway. We'll click Finish. So that gives me a way back out of that form for a user. They don't have to know much about anything. So we're going to go ahead and save that, and we're going to review now. So now I got something that I can actually work with. Because I've got my contact for my primary, my secondary, there's my labels, there's my customer data up here, this is my exit button, brings me right back out. But at this point, what does this search button do for me? Well, what it does for me is the field that I'm on, it allows me to search it. So I could come over here, as a for instance, click on Jones Construction and click my search box. And note it says I'm looking in the current field. What am I looking for? Well, I can match the whole field or any part of the field or maybe just the start of it. I type ELL and hit Enter or click Find Next, and it brings me the first match. Elliott Enterprises, customer number 1. And that's who I'm looking for.